as we continue traveling around West Michigan on the 96.1 The Game local college football spring preview. It's presented by Power Strength Training Systems. Bret, Bakita, Jason Hutton, your co-host. And next stop is Caledonia, Michigan, Davenport University. Head coach Sparky McEwen has joined us after another great year for the Panthers. Unbeaten going in those last two rivalry games with Ferris State and Grand Valley State. They got as high as number 9 in the country. Spark, thanks so much for the time as always, but congratulations on another great year there at Davenport.
Thanks a lot, guys, and it's nice to be talking to you guys here in the spring. That's a little change up because I'm normally talking to you in the fall. But yeah, it was a great year for us last year, and we're looking forward to the upcoming 24 season.
What was the focus for you and your program coming off of the 23 season into the off season and now through the spring? What did you want to accomplish, and how do you feel about where you sit today?
We wanted to stay on the wave. We had a nice wave rolling there and a lot of excitement. And obviously, guys, when you end the season with the two tough losses that we had, one was to the national champions and one was to the GLIAC champions, that's tough. And then all of a sudden, you got to get the boys rolling again into the summer season. But it was a little different for us because we said, the feel out there in the football landscape of the United States as it relates to Division II, we get a little more, respect. The expectations were higher, so things were a little different, here in Pantherland. And the guys attacked, the off season, and sure enough, guys, it led into another good campaign for us, and we rolled into the last couple games. And the problem with having those two teams at the end of your schedule, this conference is not just a two-team, a conference in regards to physicality, how tough it is to play in this conference. You got to play the likes of a Michigan Tech, the Wayne State, Saginaw Valley. You got to go through the gauntlet of just the schedule itself. But then all of a sudden we get to the end of the season, we're playing well, and we run into the two giants, in the NCAA Division II. And our quarterback, we went to that Ferris State game, our quarterback suffered a rib injury on the second series, and we go into halftime up 10-6, I think it was, and we end up losing that game. They scored 2 more scores, and we felt like we could have been a little better if we had our guy in that ball game. And then the next week, obviously, as you know, Bret, we didn't even play him because he was out with that rib injury. So disappointing into it, but once again, guys, coming from where we've come from, we've created a big wave here, man, and we're just hoping to continue, that energy.
So real quick on that Ferris Grand Valley thing, playing them back-to-back, certainly not enviable. I believe this year, right, you open with Grand Valley, open GLIAC, and then you finish with Ferris. So you'll have several weeks in between. I'm guessing you prefer this.
Yeah, you do. But once again, obviously, being the head coach here, and any head coach is going to tell you this, all the games, they're going to be massive for us. But opening the GLIAC is going to be a little different this year than any year I've had here, at DU. You're going to be opening up against the GLIAC champions, the back-to-back champions, that is, and it will be, at home. That's exciting in itself. But, once again, guys, not having those two teams back-to-back, the physicality, of that game is it's just significant.
Let's talk a little bit about spring ball, and always after you have a fall and graduation, the spring talk is, okay, this position, that position, we've got to have a new starter come in. And for you guys, Spark, it starts at the quarterback position. Jason Whitaker was outstanding as a transfer for you, coming from the Big Ten and Northwestern University, of course, started at Rockford High just down the road, all GLIAC performer. This guy really stepped up the Davenport offense, but now you have to replace him. I know you're excited about not only recruiting-wise, a guy that maybe follows in his footsteps from Rockford and Mac Vandenhout, who was a freshman last year, but also 2 transfers that'll be in the mix. Dwan Mathis, who has kind of been around Division I programs. Michigan State is where it all started, but then just coming from Temple. And then another guy that I know you guys are very excited about within the GLIAC again, which is becoming a trend for you, is Mike O'Hara, who was the quarterback at Saginaw Valley State last year.
Yeah, losing Jason, man, we were blessed to have a talent like that here, and he came in, and as advertised, he was a gunslinger when he was there at Rockford, and the 2 years that he was here, we led the conference in passing, and he did a great job for us. He put us on the map in regards to what we like to do offensively here. And it was kind of the first for me. I look for a particular type of quarterback in our scheme, and now it's led us into this season where, we lose him and you got to replace him. And sure enough, we've replaced, him with a couple guys that, through the recruiting transfer portal, we brought in a couple guys, one obviously that, played at Georgia and Temple. And then obviously the latter here was Michael Hora over at Saginaw Valley, which was the GLIAC Player of the Week, the last game of the year. So we got two talented young men that we're excited about. Both have gotten yards and experience. So we don't expect to miss a beat. We really don't. Both those guys are here in the spring. They fought hard. The biggest part for them was learning our scheme, our system. And obviously it's never enough time, those 15 practices that you get in. It's never enough time because right there in that last week, both of those kids began to really pick up our offense and start playing well, but then it was over. Okay, so, it's an incomplete body of work right now. But with that being said, man, we had a surprise in spring. Mac, man, from up there in Rockford, man, he came in and he played extremely well for us. So the future's bright for him here. And going in, these guys, they know how big their summer is, okay, that they get in here and they get their work in and show their leadership skills and help galvanize this team.
Dwan Mathis is a guy a lot of people know, four-star recruit out of Oak Park, went to Georgia. He comes in from Temple. Now, he moved to wide receiver at Temple. What have you seen from him since he's been with you in terms of going back to the quarterback position after playing wide receiver?
Man, I tell you what, the one thing he said that, for the first time in his career, he really felt like he was being coached up as a quarterback, and that obviously made us feel good over here. And we took him from ground level, and we've seen some vast improvement over the course of those 4 weeks that we were able to truly work with him as a QB. We not one time have we even thought about him looking and playing the receiver position, but I can tell you this much, we did get a 40 time on him, and guys, he was just above 4.50. He's great in the locker room, so once again for him, the body of work is incomplete, but we like the work that we put in for him, and we think that, he's got a really high ceiling at playing that position.
You're listening to 96.1 The Game, local college football spring preview. It's presented by Power Strength Training Systems. Faster, stronger, more confident athletes. That's what Power Strength Training Systems is all about across West Michigan. Davenport University head football coach Sparky McEwen, our guest in this segment. And, Coach, the running back room is full and plentiful, and none better than Myron Harris. I remember you talking to me about this guy before the season started, transfer from Wayne State, and all he did is go out and be the running back of the year in the GLIAC Conference. And then you throw in Khalif the Beef Jenkins is back. You get another Wayne State guy in Kendall Williams, who, from what I hear, might play a little wide receiver, a little slot for you as well.
Yeah, we were excited about the free agency period where we're able to go out there and find guys to plug in some of the holes that we had because, when we lost Cy Barnett, we need to get another, guy that was explosive as a slot, and picking up Kendall Williams was one that was a total shock. And there was other, GLIAC teams that were vying for his services there. But he came in, and we met with him and spent some good time on the grease board with him. He loved what we were doing. And since he's been here, guys, he was one of the shocking stories of our camp. He actually picks up as a slot better than anyone I've ever coached at the receiver position. So I'm excited about the future, there with him. And then those other two running backs, we took a poll here on our staff, and between Myron and Khalid, we hit the scales at one point at 500 pounds. And I know that's hard to believe, but, Khalid hit the scale at 270, and the other kid hit the scale at 231, and was Myron the back of the year. And people will not believe how fast, how quick they are with those type of weights. So we felt like we had the biggest backfill in the country, and that's including the NFL, and it's here at Farmers in Caledonia at Davenport University. I'm so excited about our run game and what we have to display this upcoming season.
Coach, let's go to the other side of the ball, and my notes say defensive line, deep and talented, secondary, deep and talented. You might be a little younger, less experienced at linebacker. Is that a good way to phrase it, and how much does it help to kind of groom those new linebackers with so much talent in front of them and behind them?
Yeah, when you lose the likes of a Julius Wilkerson, that guys, he's one of the guys that on Sunday of the NFL draft and on that Monday, there's a good chance this kid is going to, sign with an NFL team. When you lose someone of that significance, that's a hole to have to fill that, especially at the Division II level. For us, it's a massive hole. We lost 2 linebackers inside. Now guys are talking about our quarterback that we lose, there. So we got some young kids that's going to have to step up that we recruited that were high school kids that we have faith in. But with that being said, we've also know that, we're going to have depth there. And in the portal, we've also spent some time looking for some guys that can come in and help us. And they know that with our scheme defensively, that's been a staple since I've been here. We've always played solid defense to the point where it's actually good defense, But we return up front some guys that are talented. Giamonte Peck was a guy that we thought was gone and that was going to pursue a career professionally, and then finds out that he actually had one more year of eligibility. So he was first-team all-conference in the GLIAC, and he's back. He's noted as 1-2 punch in the GLIAC as being one of the best defensive linemen. Austin Allward, the defensive end, the 6'6" kid for us. Seems like he's been playing forever. He's back for us, and then we got a host of number of young kids that came in as high school kids and transfers that is going to fill the rest of that void. In the secondary, man, last year we came in, we had lost everyone. Coach McEwen added some depth over there in our secondary, and 2 or 3 of those kids were all conference, and we returned those guys. And then we added the likes of Justin White coming in from Michigan State. He's been a pleasant surprise for us. There's going to be an opportunity that, we may be able to play him both ways, okay, because he doubles as a slot. So getting him in the mix was important because he's that type of athlete that he's got a skill set that I think can help us on both sides of the ball. And then we got a young man from Lake Erie, a safety, Cam Grouthouse. Man, he's been one of the better, transfer portal that we've been able to pick up in the secondary. So I'm excited about our defense. Probably a little more excited about the defense than I am the offense. But once the offense really gets it going and we can get some guys up front to get this thing going, we should be tough again.
For tickets information, their schedule hasn't been released yet, but will be out shortly. Go to dupanthers.com under the football tab. That's dupanthers.com. Sparky McEwen, our guest head coach for DU. Always good to catch up with you, Coach. Congrats on the last 2 seasons. We're looking forward to this fall.
I'm looking forward to being with you guys, and I'd love to see both of you on the golf course this year. I think it'd be nice if these coaches that you're talking to about this stuff, we can go out and have a little competition with you guys.
Oh, boy. There we go. And just a reminder, you can catch Davenport University football again this season coming up with Rick Berkey on the call on 96.1 The Game.
You're listening to the 96.1 The Game local college football spring preview with GVSU, Ferris State, Davenport University, Hope College, and Calvin University. Presented by Power Strength Training Systems. Faster, stronger, more confident athletes.
Well, you just heard from Davenport University head football coach. What a job he's done. Sparky McEwen here on the 96.1 The Game. Local college football spring preview is presented by Power Strength Training Systems. I'm Bret Bakita, joined as always by Jason Hutton. And the third member of our crew is someone familiar to you with the high school football coverage, as well as voice of the DU Panthers football and basketball programs on Flow Sports, and also football-wise on 96.1 The Game right here, Rick Berkey. And Rick, I don't have to tell you, because you've been doing this for a while, how awesome the last 2 seasons have been for the football side of things for Sparky McEwen and this Panthers program, especially last year. I know it wasn't the finish that they wanted, but 2 years ago, making it to the national tournament, and then last year, right in the mix, going down to those Grand Valley and Ferris State games.
That's right. Good to be with you, Bret and Jason, on that. And it has been a couple special years. A lot of hard work by the football staff's gone in, and it's pretty impressive when you think about it. It's last 2 years, 17-5 combined, and if you take away teams named Grand Valley or Ferris, it's 17-0. So they just had their lot of, in the same division, same league as 2 of the top teams, if not the top teams in the country. And certainly in the region, and that's always a challenge. And of course, that is the next challenge, as you spoke with Sparky about, is bridging that gap, and that's the challenge, and you do it with depth. And so each year the depth gets a little stronger because a lot of coaches can come in and get guys, get some good players in there, but when they go down, there's a huge drop off from your top first line to the next one. And that's where the depth comes in, where you've got guys coming in ready to take over a spot, and they're also very talented, and the drop-off isn't as good. And that's something that Grand Valley and Ferris, quite frankly, have a decade's head start on Davenport, and there's only one way to work on that, and that's to continue to get better each year.
Well, Rick, spring football is in the past now, and getting a front row seat as you did. What jumped out to you through the spring, and what gets you most excited for the fall with this football team?
Well, I guess I'm an announcer, Jason, but I'm also a fan. So, fans, what do they do in football? Well, the first thing they look at is the quarterback, and you had a 2-year all-conference performer in Jason Whitaker, who you lost. But it looks very interesting there with a couple of transfers coming in, vastly different backgrounds. Mike O'Horo transferred from Saginaw Valley, where he was their starter last year for 8 games, and then a young man named Dwan Mathis, who was a really well-known high school 4-star prospect from the Detroit area, and actually went down to Georgia, actually played in a game down there for Georgia, eventually moved to tight end, then he just switched over to Temple University before Davenport got him. And those two are battling right now, and I got a chance to see both of them play, and Mike O'Horo is getting a lot of deserved acknowledgement from the coaches. He throws a nice ball. He can run the ball. And Dwan Mathis, you can see he's a little rusty having been away from the quarterback room for a while, but you can also see the potential there, not only as a thrower, but that young man can run the football. And also in the quarterback spot, a young man from Rockford, Mac Vandenhout, the coaches are talking a lot about him and how he's come on. He started to come on last spring, and this year they said he made even a bigger jump. And so keep for him. Running back, they are sitting really, really good. They're 2 all-conference performers come back in Myron Harris and Khalif the Beef Jenkins, one of my personal favorites. And they brought another all-GLIAC performer in from Wayne State, Kendall Williams. That backfield room is so deep that Kendall's going to play a lot of wide receiver this year. So offense is looking pretty good. And at wide receiver, you've got Pogo Preston Smith, as I call him. He's 6'3" and can jump out of the gym. Surprised that Davenport basketball coach Bert Paddock hasn't worked on trying to get him on the court, because he can really leap, and he's a fun to watch. We mentioned Williams going to play wide receiver. Hakeem Harris, another guy that they're excited about. So there's a lot of offensive weapons coming back this year.
We're speaking with Rick Berkey, the voice of Davenport football, as we preview the Panthers. And Rick, I just got to know, Pogo Preston Smith, Khalif the Beef Jenkins, what's the criteria for getting a nickname from Rick Berkey?
They earn it. They have to earn it. They got to show something, not only performance-wise, but with a little flair. Myron Harris has been. I talked to him. He saw me in spring. He pulled me over and he says, you called me marvelous Myron. You called me magnificent Myron. He says, I want a third one this year. So I like the guys that have a little flair with it as well.
He's the running back performer of all GLIAC for the entire conference. You got to come up with a third one. I think he's earned it, Rick. And, you look at that. That, to me, says a lot about Sparky McEwen, who you go way back like I do with his days at Creston High, noticing talent, developing talent, he and his staff, and now his son on staff as the DC. But I'm just amazed at the contacts they have and the ability to find players and then have players seek out Davenport University because of their success. I mean, you're just talking about a couple of guys from Wayne State, one guy and the quarterback from Saginaw Valley State. These are guys that played against Davenport and now want to be here and be a Panther, let alone throwing in a Justin White who transferred from Michigan State. That, to me, really speaks volumes about not only Sparky, but the program he's developed.
Yeah, and the coaches see this, Bret, when they go out and recruit. When they started out, way back when the program started, they were going into Florida and California and Texas and other states across the country, and the first thing they had to tell potential recruits was, no, Davenport is not located in Iowa. Okay, it's in Michigan, Grand Rapids, Michigan, and because that's how unknown they were. And to a degree, there's an element of that still out there. I know traveling with the football and basketball teams, you still get that in restaurants, and some people see Davenport and think that, but it's not nearly what it was. More people get to know it, and again, you get some success on the field, and then all of a sudden, you start to get connections with, like all high school recruiting. You get to know the coaches who share somebody. Hey, we may not have a running back you want this year, but a guy we play against in our conference is somebody you really should take a look at. He's really, really good.
Rick, we talked with Coach McEwen about the skill and all the talent that's there, but one thing we didn't get to with him was the offensive line, and there's a lot to replace there. What do you expect out of the offensive line, and what do you think's got to happen? Because we all know how important, football games are won in the trenches, so what have you seen from the young guys here in the offensive line early?
Well, I guess, Jason, the phrase is work in progress. The last time I saw Sparky when we taped something for the Davenport DUPanthers.com website, they had just had their last practice of the spring, and it was not a good one for the offensive line. So you had to measure that with a grain of salt. But again, it comes back really to that depth we're talking about. Whereas before, let's go back 3-4 years ago, where maybe they're counting on 3 or 4 guys on the offensive line, and a couple of them, one gets hurt, a couple of them doesn't measure up to what they thought they'd be. They're going to be in trouble. But now, because they've been recruiting and getting some more depth, they've got more options. They can say, okay, this guy, we can play this guy at guard, but we can play him at center if we have to as well. So the depth is there, but to be totally honest, it is an unknown. And I think you touched on it, Jace, that might determine that. When you've got running backs like we mentioned in Myron Harris and Khalif Jenkins, if you don't have any type of seam or hole for them, it isn't going to matter. So if I had to pick one area that I said is the X factor on how the Panthers do this fall, it would be that offensive line.
How about on the defensive side, Rick, real quick? I know Giamonte Peck, a big fella out of Cincinnati, Ohio, coming back was huge, 6'4", 310, all GLIAC performer. But they've got a guy like a Will Berry coming in who's a transfer. That seems to be an area of strength for them. And as you know, just as important the offensive line with some of those defenses you're going up against in those run games in the GLIAC Conference. But an area that is kind of unproven again, they need some guys to step up because of graduation, is linebacker, right?
That is. It's similar, not to the extreme of the offensive line, but they've got a good blend. They've got some guys who've had experience there as well. And, if that line you mentioned, Will Berry, the coaches are really high on him. And, of course, we got Austin Allward back, who's had some really outstanding play at time, and Giamonte Peck, who could be one of the top D linemen again in this fall in the GLIAC. But if that continues to float up, they may try to move some guys around, between the back seven and between linebacker and DB, because they've got a good, solid, ball-hawking defensive backfield. So I would say that there are some question marks at the linebacker position, but they're not as extreme as the offensive line right now.
Rick, obviously, there's a mountain there to climb. Davenport's been really good the last 2 years, but with GV and Ferris being in the GLIAC and striving to beat those guys at least one time here, what do you think will be different for Davenport, not necessarily in terms of the players, but in terms of like the X's and O's? Do you think that this team's going to try to do some different things here in an effort to try to run down those elite programs?
I think so. Sparky McEwen was a former quarterback in high school, college, and he coaches quarterbacks, and you'll see that's his position. In addition to being the head coach, he's also the position coach for the quarterbacks. And he understands how the game is evolving into an offensive game. And I think what you're going to see strategically is you're going to see more diversity in the passing game. They've had Jason Whitaker, who's been an all-GLIAC performer for the last 2 years. The diversity in the type of game, I think you're going to see more throws to the backs out of the backfield. You're going to see more bubble screens, I think, than we've seen in the past. Ways to get some of these skill players out in space where they can make a guy miss and turn a 9-yard play into a 45-yard play.
You're listening to the 96.1 The Game local college football spring preview. It's presented by Power Strength Training Systems. Faster, stronger, more confident athletes. That's what they're all about. And you can schedule your free consultation at powerstrengthpro.com. He is the voice of DU football, Rick Berkey. And Rick, before we wrap things up, I hope you have the van packed and ready to go, and maybe your wife as a driver, because you look at the schedule, 7 road games to right now currently just 3 home games. You're going to be a road warrior.
Oh, yeah, and not just road games, Bret, but far away road games to Missouri, to Maryland, to Michigan Tech. You know, boy, I tell you what, it's Kentucky is one of the trips as well. So they're long trips, which make it especially challenging. You know, the game isn't any different when you're that far away, but the whole process of getting your team to transport a team far away when they're going to stay one or sometimes 2 nights on the road. That's especially challenging for a young team. You have players that are young will have to do that as well. But 7 road games this year, that is going to be daunting. One of the nice parts about it is that one of the road games is to the new team. Roosevelt University joins the GLIAC this year in Chicago, and excited. We play at Roosevelt in the Windy City. Their campus is in downtown Chicago. They play in Arlington Heights out in the suburbs, though their game is. It'd be fun to go out and see how Roosevelt ranks. We welcome Roosevelt to the GLIAC. One thing I don't welcome is the Roosevelt University athletic teams are the Lakers. So we now have 3, not 1, not 2, but 3 different Lakers in the GLIAC in Grand Valley, Lake Superior State, and Roosevelt.
That's a lot of Lakers. I got to be honest, Rick.
It is the Great Lakes Intercollegiate Athletic Conference.
That's right. Good stuff as always, Rick. Enjoy your summer. Fall will be here before you know it. We're looking forward to it with DU football. He is the voice of DU football and basketball for the Panthers, Rick Berkey. Appreciate the time, Rick.
Happy to, Bret and Jason. Good luck. I'm looking forward to the fall already.